So I'm having a chat with John, Fishell and Deepak Ram. How are you both?
Doing great.
Good. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, not too bad. Thanks so much. So we will be playing a track of yours called Valentine after this interview. Tell us a bit about the single, first of all.
Well, it's a song I wrote a while ago. It's sort of a forgiveness. I mean, it's literally happened to me where I've forgotten about Valentine Day and needed a way back in. And it turned out to be a nice song. It's sort of based on summertime, and Deepak really added a nice touch and a nice flavor to it, you know.
Yeah, good, good. And that is off your new record, Notorious Partners in Crime. For those who've not heard it yet, tell us a bit about the record and what we can expect to hear on it.
Uh, it's a pretty unique kind of combination because I come from a very different world. I come from an Indian classical world, and I've delved somewhat into jazz, but never into rock and pop. So I think it's an interesting combination. The tour we just did, in London and around England, the response was very positive because it's something new, and maybe John can speak more about that.
Yeah, I called it a swirl the other day because it's not quite a blend. It's not exactly blended together. It's just kind of the two of us happening at the same time and sticking to our roots as we play. Like mine being the rock folk songwriter, scenario, and Deepak's being Indian classical, and honestly, the sound of his flute and my voice and my guitar put together in the swirl just feels great, and I think sounds great. So I mean, that's definitely what to expect on the record.
Good, good. And the sound that you made with the record, is it the sound you wanted, or is it kind of just how it turned out as you were writing and recording it?
Actually, that's a great question.
Geez, yeah.
I think it took on a little bit of a life of its own on the back half of the record. I think the front half of the record was recorded all at the same time, and so that would have been what Space Time and Valentine
And Rain Song.
and Rain Song were all that's a live recording. But the back half we built up piece by piece, and I think that's where it sort of took on a life of its own in that way. So you're really getting a side A and a side B on this thing, I think, and although it is Deepak playing in my voice, it really is two distinct, I think, projects, really.
Yeah, nice, nice. And I like to find out how you two got together, because John, we've spoken before about your solo stuff, but you've kind of come together for this record. So how did you get together to do this, and why do it as well?
Well, see, I mean, John and I have known each other for 32 years almost, and we all, we met in Durban, South Africa, at the university where I was teaching, and John came to teach sound engineering there. And we moved around in many different cities and countries, and eventually John came back to his hometown, Washington, just outside Washington D.C., where I moved to, and then that's when this collaboration started with conversations first. And I presented some melodies, and he wrote lyrics, and we kind of went back and forth, and the result is the album.
Yeah, that's a good. And your second part of the question was why?
Yeah, why do this?
Why? Well, why not?
No, I mean, for me, it's one of the things I've learned is always collaborate up. So I'm always wanting to work with people, who are much more accomplished than I am, who are better artists than I am, and that lifts me and propels me to try to do better. So and Deepak is one of those artists. I mean, in my estimation, Deepak's number one or number two in the world.
I don't know about I don't know about that, but I think musically I mean, John's a singer-songwriter, but he's also a very consummate, accomplished musician and he understands music in many different genres. I mean, the first time I met him, he was showing me, and this is 32 years ago, he was showing me some voicings on a John Coltrane album on a piano. And so, he does string writing, he plays bass, he plays, and he's also aware of many different musical genres, and his ear is very refined. So that way, it was kind of easy to collaborate because the instrument I play, to sound is not a chromatic instrument like a saxophone or a Western flute. And so John's understanding of what I can do with the instrument, lends itself for good collaboration. It's not like me doing a session, going into studio and just playing on somebody's song. It's a real collaboration. And we speak a lot about, what we're going to do together and that the result. I mean, you be the judge.
Yeah, no,
We're
yeah.
going to take over the world.
That's always the plan.
Yeah.
And when it comes to writing, John, we spoke before about the writing, but how did the writing work for the two of you kind of doing this record together? And was it a bit tricky for someone like you, John, who kind of writes normally for yourself, having Deepak in there to kind of have his influence?
You know what we do to each. I think we kind of challenge each other in certain ways. People say, "Hey, John, that's great, but that doesn't fall into the raga that I'm playing. So let's see you put that puzzle together." And I'll go back to Deepak and I'll be like, "Hey, I know this totally doesn't work on your instrument, but how about you try to play it anyway?" And he'll figure out some weird finger hole thing, and we do a little bit of that. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys know Michael Che and Colin Jost from Saturday Night Live over here, the fake news anchors. They give each other jokes to read, and it's pretty funny. So I think we do a little bit of that. We give each other little challenges, and that in and of itself is good for me to do. So I think that is a part of the writing, and the other part is I'm doing everything I can to honor Deepak in these songs. I'm never gonna write something that puts Deepak in a hole, that he's got to dig out of. I want everyone to hear his genius, and the places where Deepak is playing, is set up for him to play. And I think when we approach it that way, and being very supportive of each other, and even though we are challenging, we want, I want Deepak to shine, and I think Deepak wants me to shine, and that level of support makes the songs work.
Yeah, I think on another level we get along very well, and so we, even if we plan an hour rehearsal, we joke around for like half that time. We do accents, we do share lots of humor, watch, we behave silly, and so we get along really well that way. Besides the music, and that kind of helps the collaboration because it's not like a clinical thing. And it's not like, okay, so let's do this song. I'm going to play this. Can you do this? It's not like that. It's kind of very organic, I think.
Yeah.
John will present a song and I'll say, okay, I really like this part and I can do this. And he'll say, okay, what about that? And so and then we joke for 10-15 minutes and then we get back to, so that makes it fun. And for me personally, it's a learning experience. It's putting my instrument in a different paradigm, and so I have to extend certain techniques, and it also helps my ear to listen to different kinds of things, because when you grow up and you study one kind of music, and then somebody throws you into another genre, it's a learning experience, but it's also a really fun experience.
Yeah, because apart from the odd collaboration here and there throughout your career, it's mainly not been this sound or this more contemporary modern style of music that you get involved with. What's it like kind of, as you say, getting involved in a genre, let's say, of music that it's not normally considered with the instruments like the flute and that?
You know, for me, the great benefit is it gives me a newfound appreciation for songwriting, and and writing, and in term like in Indian classical music, when I do solo concerts, a single piece of mine can be 35 to 45 minutes. So it's drawn out. And so I have a newfound appreciation for words and music that's 3 to 5 minutes long, but it says everything it needs to say. So I like to compare it with a novel as to a poem. You can read a novel and get something from it, but you can read a 5 sentence poem and get as much from it as you do from a novel. So that kind of appreciation for songwriting and composition that is concise, it's helped me think in a different way. Even now in my own compositions, I'll start thinking in a very different way. So
I was just thinking, when Americans come over here, I know it has to be annoying when we are trying our best to imitate various accents over here, right? It's funny for us, and I think for English people, like, and I think that's something we're trying to avoid in this music. I think we would never want Deepak to play, an Indian accent Western music, and he's not going to want me to put on an Indian accent with what I'm doing, if that makes any sense. So in that way, I think it's very authentic.
Yeah.
We're coming at this thing in an authentic way, and I hope that shines through on the recordings.
Yeah, and we kind of adjust things, but we still ourselves. When we're working together, he's still John Fishell. He's not changing his style or his voice, and like you just mentioned. And I'm not, while I'm adapting new techniques, I'm still playing the instrument the way I want to play it. And so that makes it, really interesting. And I personally think it works, and I hope, your listeners think it works too.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. And you've been busy over the last few days doing some shows. How have they gone down?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some really nice crowds. People were really listening attentively, and it was great.
Yeah, except one place.
Yeah, one place. Yeah,
They were just talking it up. I think it was the end of the week, and everybody was just glad to see each other at that place. And they just kept on talking, and I wanted to join their conversation while we were playing. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, that was 1 out of 6.
Yeah, gigs, 1 out of 6 or 7. But
so the others were all awesome.
Dead quiet.
Yeah.
And I think enraptured they were, because a lot of people have never heard and been up close to a piece of bamboo with 6 holes in it played in that way. And I think when you are sitting close to Deepak and he's playing, it's kind of a miracle what he can do with that instrument. And I mean, sometimes I'm forgetting to play as I'm watching him do that. I have to snap myself back into reality a little bit. I think that was part of the experience this time around.
Yeah, most.
Yeah, and I believe we've got some more shows to come and to be announced. What's your plans for kind of shows in the future?
I think we're working really hard to ride on top of the release and the publicity we're getting now to put some shows. I mean, usually you have to book things 5 and 6 months away, so we're probably looking at March and April, that time zone to come back and maybe have a little bit bigger group when we come back and add percussion and bass and stuff, and you know, being a little bit bigger, more powerful venues, and see how that works.
Yeah, hopefully, you know, once, you know, people get to listen to the album, and you know, we might, you know, be booking some dates soon, hopefully, you know.
But you know, it does take people listening, and shows like yours are very helpful. Thank you. And you know, it takes people getting a babysitter, and getting a parking spot, and or riding the train. And I know it's hard for people, and we're just so grateful we get to play this music, and we'll continue to be grateful for every single time. And honestly, I love meeting everyone that comes out, and I hope that can be a part of things. So if your listeners want to hang out with us, you know, every time you see us come around, it's a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah, you know, I have to, you know, second that, you know, people make an effort to come to your concert. Like, you know, you have to get a babysitter, you have to get a train, you have to arrange all that. So, I mean, we really appreciate that, because, you know, presenting what is very dear and very deep within us and sharing that is what gigs are all about, or, you know, producing music. You know, otherwise I could just sit at home and just, you know, listen to my own stuff and listen to other people, and that's that, you know. But, you know, it's a communication way beyond language. So if we can touch somebody's chemistry, you know, like, I believe music changes people's chemistry, you know. If we can do that, you know, that's all we want, you know.
Mm.
You know, I was
Yeah.
proud of us. Last night we made a grown man cry from one of the pieces. I mean, that was great. So I hope to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Bring tissues.
It's not normally a good sign, is it, when someone cries? But in this situation,
No, he was
Yeah,
so emotional. Like, he was really touched. I
yes.
appreciate that guy.
yeah, absolutely. Guys, it's been a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thank you very much.